All right, now let's dive in deep into the spanning tree protocol, or for short, STP protocol. Okay, now we're going to get into the lab just so you can see a comparison of how it does its election process, because it does. Now, the first election process is, so you can break it down into stages, is to become the root bridge, the main bridge. I call it a bridge, but it's a switch. So the names are interchangeable. All right, nobody uses bridges anymore. All right, the lowest bridge ID. And what is that? By default, the bridge ID is 32769. Okay, and then it's a combination of that and the MAC address. That becomes a bridge ID. So the lowest bridge ID. But in your mind, think of 32769. Okay, then if they're all, because that's the default for all switches, if that's the same, then it's going to go to the next criteria. It's going to say, okay, well, out of these switches, who has the lowest MAC address? So it finds the MAC address of who is the lowest switch, though the lowest MAC address on whatever switch. Okay, and that will become the root bridge. Now, the fastest bandwidth, it should have been here on the non-root bridge. Not a big deal. All right, so don't even worry about where it says fastest bandwidth. All right, but these two criteria it will use for the root bridge. Now, because I used to put all this together, the variables or criteria to make it a non-root bridge. So we decided, hey, we got a root bridge. It found the lowest MAC address. Hey, I'm the root bridge. So you're not. Okay, so that means that other switch / bridge is either has a highest bridge ID, which I said that by default they're all 32769. So if it used the highest MAC address, okay, that means that the root bridge has a lower MAC address. So it's using the MAC address. Also, we talked about in the previous presentation that switches by nature will keep forwarding and forwarding and forwarding. Okay, now we know I am the root bridge. You're the non-root bridge. So now we got to decide the port states, right? We need to block a port to stop that forwarding from going on. How is that going to happen? Well, this is where the fastest and slowest bandwidth comes in. Obviously, it's going to pick the slowest bandwidth to block a port. The slowest bandwidth to block a port, not a faster bandwidth. That makes sense. You're going to block an Ethernet 0 before you block a fast Ethernet 0. You're going to block a fast Ethernet 0 before you block a gigabit 0, and so forth. Okay? So that will become a block port. Who will become the root port? Any port that faces the root bridge, that is considered a root port. I'll say it again. Any port that faces, I'm coming from here to there, I'm facing the root bridge, then that port is considered a root port. And the ports, designated ports, what is that? A designated port is a port that forwards, designated forwarding port. Okay, that's what they're called. So what makes that a designated forwarding port? Well, on the root bridge, all ports on the root bridge are designated forwarding. Period. End of discussion. In the non-root bridge, the designated forwarding port are the one that has the lower MAC address or the faster bandwidth or is nearest to the root bridge. You can think of it that way. Cisco uses a mathematical equation. It's not really that hard, really. All it is just adding up the bandwidth as you go along, or the cost, adding up the cost as you go along. And you'll see it now in the lab. So this election process to see who's going to be the root bridge, the non-root bridge, and the port states is very important, because guarantee you will see this. You will see this. Okay? So you need to understand this particular election process that exists in spanning tree, whether it's PVST or whatever it is. let's go ahead and get into the lab so you can see the comparison, okay? So let's escape out of this presentation, open up our spanning tree lab, and here we are. I believe you can see me, right? You can see the thing right there? Very good, very good. Yes, I have a student in my lab, so I just wanted to make sure. All right, so here, there's no configuration on these switches whatsoever. I just put a bunch of switches out there and I used the lightning bolt, actually cheated, and just connected whatever it wanted to connect. When you use a lightning bolt, you always connect the first ports. So I didn't do anything. But I can tell you right now that in this scenario here, this is the root bridge. These are designated forwarding ports. The amber right here, this is a block port. This is the non-root bridge, and this is a root port. I already know this. I already know this just by looking at it. Obviously, in the real world scenario, it'll be a little bit, you'll have show commands, and I'll show you which ones they are. Okay, and I didn't make any changes, so the default bridge ID is 32769, correct? All right, so it's using the higher MAC address. So this switch right here has a higher MAC address than this switch right here. So let's take a look at the root bridge real quick. Let's open this up so you can take a look at it. Good to go, right? Good to go. We can see that. All right, let's hit enter. See, no name, nothing. I typed enable. And from right here, I'm going to do a show command. I suggest you pay attention to these show commands. Show spanning tree. Okay. Now, what are we looking at? Now, I need to really open this up a little bit, just a little bit. You can see that right there. Okay, because this is the information you need to look at right here. So you can see that this portion of it right here, okay, is telling you who the root bridge is. It's for the root bridge. So we're using a priority of 32769. The MAC address of the switch is that right there. This is telling you, hey, I am the root bridge. And this information down here, okay, is going to be for the switch itself. So this switch, you can see that the MAC address is the same. So remember the 5th of November. No, I'm just kidding. I just saw the movie the other day. So remember this MAC address. Remember this MAC address right here. Okay? Remember this MAC address right here. So what we're going to do is, and before I go, take a look at the ports. All ports are designated forwarding. And what does this cost mean? This is a fast Ethernet cost. It's a given. Gigabit is 4. Fast Ethernet is 19. Okay, this is the cost that gets added if you were to have 5, 15, 20, 30 switches interconnected with each other. They will do that calculation and add up these costs. You're not going to do that. Okay, you just decide who you want to be the root bridge. All right, so let's take a look at the other switch. Open that up. Bring this down. So we hit enable, show spanning tree. Okay. Now you can see that this doesn't say, well, this is telling me who the root bridge is, and that's that other switch, because that's the MAC address of the root bridge. Okay. But look at my MAC address. Let's open this up a little bit so it can make more sense. There we go. Look at this MAC address. Oh, 00E. So it's a higher MAC address. It's a higher MAC address. This was a lower MAC address because it's 000. That's why this one became the non-root bridge and the other one became the root bridge. Also, let's take a look at the ports. F01, that's a root port. They're both the same bandwidth. All right, so it just picked one. They both have the same cost. So what made it pick that port? I said one of the criteria was the MAC address. That's the lower the port, the lower the MAC address. And this is alternating block. Why alternating? Because if I were to unplug the top port, guess what? That will no longer be blocked. will it? Because that's the only port that's there. So this is the election process. Well, you can control that. You can control that. And that's exactly what I want to show you here. Who do you think is the root bridge here? Well, unfortunately, this is a root bridge. This is a non-root bridge, and this is a non-root bridge. These two are green. They're facing the switch, so those are root ports. This is a designated forwarding port, 19 to get to over here. Okay, if not, it would be 19 plus 19, that's 38. That will be further. And this is a block port. So that's why, and it's based on not the bridge ID, it is based on the MAC address. Okay, so the command enable show spanning tree. Again, let's make it a little bit bigger so it makes more sense. There you go. You can see this is the root bridge, all designated forwarding ports, and there's my MAC address, 0001, right? Cool. Let's take a look at the block one. He must have the highest MAC address of all. All right. Enable, show spanning tree. Let's make it make sense. There we go. All right. You can see that his MAC address, again, is 00E. All right. That's to compare to the root bridge, which is 0001. And there's your alternating block. But wait a minute, Lash, you said that the lower MAC address wouldn't be blocked. It would choose a root port. But I also said that every port facing the root bridge must be a root port. This guy right here is a root port because it's facing the MAC address. It's facing the root bridge. So now this one is 00E. Okay, let's take a look at this one right here. All right, and let's do the command enable show spanning tree. And this is 00D. You can look at it right there already. Okay, you can see the map. You can see the root bridge information right there. All right, and then you see that this one is 00D. The one that has the block port was 00E, and that's why he's got chosen. And then you see that we have a root port because it's facing the root bridge, and we have a designated forwarding port with a cost of 19. Because to get to the root bridge, all you gotta do is cross the switch, which is 19. If you would have gone this way, it would have been 38. 19 and 19, 38. That's all there is. But I want this guy to always be the root bridge. What's the command? Config T, spanning tree, VLAN 1, comma. They said there's multiple VLANs, comma, which we do, 20. Priority, and I'm going to make a mistake on purpose, 5. Says, no. There's the values, exact values that you have to put on there. I'm like, oh, okay. So I want this guy to always be the root bridge. I'm going to put 0. And now he will always, for now until the end of time, be the root bridge. He was always a root bridge to begin with, but because I did that particular command, now he will always be the root bridge. And in our labs, you'll see that the top switch will always be the root bridge because it's connected to a router that goes somewhere else and what have you. But that is your election process. Those are your states of your ports, or type of ports, right? Whether it be block, designated forwarding, root ports, okay? Non-root bridges, root bridges. Okay, you need to really understand that election process. It's very important. And the command that you can simply use is show spanning tree or show spanning tree VLAN 1. And you'll see it because by default, we're all part of VLAN 1. All right, well, there you have it. 2 different examples right here. Okay, I'll get out the way so you can see it very clearly. 2 different examples. I didn't manipulate it in any way. The spanning tree works all on its own. It's already on. Okay, all right, with that said, I'll see you in the next one.